Okay, so this is day one of the new Paludarium build. This is a Exoterra 36 by 18 by 18 with the opening doors. And it will be a Paludarium, which will have water in the front here. So right now, this was used and I am going to do a clean on it, but right now I'm just kind of doing a dry fit of some items to see kind of how I want it to look. So far, the first thing that I've done is it comes with a background, and I've just cut that piece of background. I'll pull it down here so you can see. I just cut it down to where I want it at the back, because underneath it, I am going to be putting a false bottom, and I want to adhere that false bottom to the back of the terrarium with silicone. So I cut that to fit, and then I can actually use pieces of this. I'm going to carve out and add more depth onto here, because this is for Bellied Toads and they like to kind of crawl up and hide and stuff like that. So I'm going to utilize that. So that's step number one. And then I'm just going to dry fit and kind of see how things are going to go. Okay, so still day one, just kind of playing around with everything. So I got the back piece cut. And I'm just doing a water test right now, just making sure that everything is not leaking, and so far so good. The water is definitely higher than what it is going to be, but that's what I wanted to do, just to make sure that, you know, you just never know where leaks and stuff are. So it's just testing, seeing how that goes. I've already cut the top piece of the egg crate light diffuser, which is going to be my false bottom. Now, when you're doing a paludarium, or you're doing paludarium, basically meaning that you're going to have a water section and a land section. Anywhere there's going to be sitting water for, say, frogs or fish or whatever you're putting in here, you need to create a false bottom. And what that does is, this is the top piece, and I'll have more egg crate. You can see kind of from the side, that will come down here all the way on the side. So it's going to be a whole kind of cage, if you will. And what this does is it will allow it to be out of the water. And then you can put your substrate, there's a lot of other steps, but basically you'll end up having your substrate to grow your plants and everything on there, and it won't be sitting in the water. If you have your substrate sitting in water, you're going to end up with roots that are going to go all gross and mushy on you. You're going to have plants that are going to die, and you're going to end up just having rot in there, which is not good for anything. So you'll get a bad smell, and you just can't have it in there. So you need what's called a false bottom. You can decide what kind of false bottom you want to use. There's lots of different ways to do it. This is just my preferred way. So, and then I started playing around with some pieces of random driftwood, not necessarily going with those ones, and playing around with some cork bark. Now, the idea with this one is that there's going to be some sort of water feature coming out of the top and slowly coming down, and then I am going to have sort of like a river of some sort, maybe coming off the side or this side. I'm not entirely too sure. But what I have noticed with my frogs is that they like the water. So I thought maybe a water feature coming down, and like a pool area up here, and then coming down again to the bottom. Sorry, bad videoing. And then maybe coming down like a little river and off the side, or who knows, so something like that. So I do have this kind of here, and then I made this extra water area back here, because it'll have the pump. Plus I want to put in this corner some nice aquatic plants that are going to get like lots of leaves and stuff like that, and maybe one day they'll have babies in there. So that's kind of the idea for that. And then this background, when I do decide what I'm going to put on it, what I'm going to do is, it has texture already to it, which is really great. But what I'm going to do is be adding things like driftwood or cork bark, which is what this is. You can get it in whole rounds or halves like that. But if you do put it up on here in slants, you can make little kind of potted homes for them, or like whatever. It's really only your imagination. And then the other thing I'm going to do is somewhere on here. We'll say here. This pot's a bit big, but it might work. So say even like down in here, if I wanted to have like some sort of leaves and stuff. I have smaller pots, I'm not using these big ones, but like that you would have on there, and then you have all your structure stuff in there, what you want to decorate it with, and then you need to get some great stuff, expanding foam. I prefer the black, and then it kind of sticks everything together. So the areas on the back that we don't use the expanding foam, I'm going to be using silicone and cocoa fiber to cover it up, so it'll all look kind of like a jungle background. So right now that is all I'm doing. I still need to figure out what I'm going to do with what fountain and that sort of stuff, and just do this water test for the night. It looks, like I said, it looks pretty good, and then drain it out, and then the plan is to set this up completely, but it is the right height for where I want it, so I'm happy with that. And the background is sitting in there pretty smooth, so I'm happy about that. So this is my Bellied Toad Paludarium day 2, day 3. I found that the tank that I bought, which was used and it's fine, wasn't holding water in this back corner right here. It was leaking, so what I did is I went along and I took out with a razor blade, a few razor blades, I had to take out all the old silicone. So I took out all the old silicone, and then I re-siliconed it. And I've yet to do another water test. I was just letting it dry. Now while I was letting it dry, you can see that I've kind of composed my egg crate background. So here is where the land is going to go, and you can see this is where the bottom piece goes down to the glass, and I will be putting like a fiberglass window screen all around the front of this, and this is where the land is going to go. Now I did put this here, which is more sloping. There's not going to be this is going to be a bit more watertight, because I think somewhere in here I'm going to have some sort of waterfall. So this is all going to be done in expanding foam, and it comes out and around. So I wanted it to have like areas of deep water, and if you can see from here, so I'll have like more water, and then this comes closer. Again, all of this is going to be enclosed in expanding foam, so the frogs can't go in it, and then around and back. So just to make the land area a bit more jagged, try to be a bit more naturalistic. Now I am going to put some sort of water feature in here. Where I'm going to be putting it, I don't know yet. So I haven't yet decided if I'm going to have it coming out from here and maybe down, or in the middle over here. But I am going to be doing cutting some foam for that and carving it out. Trying to figure out where the driftwood should go. Okay, so this is day 4, I think it is. 3, 4, could be 4, 5. Anyways, taking a few days. So even after I sealed the inside of here, there was still a bit of a leak. So I drained everything else again and resealed it. And I know my workstation's a disaster, but we're not leaking over there, which is fantastic. So since then, I got the water pump, which is hooked up in down here, and I'll take this all apart so you can see. I'm just doing a trial just to kind of see where it's going to go. So the water feature is going to come out there, and there is going to be like a river that's going to go down. Now what's important to notice is that obviously the water's going down here and it's falling into here. Now this is where you're going to have your plants, so you can't have stagnant water in here. So when I do fill this in, this is all going to be expanding foam, and up on the side up into here. I'll probably have it sloped once I carve it out, and then from here all the way down I'm going to have a piece of really thick plastic all the way down, so the water will actually be forced to flow in off the edge. Now I'm not using all these rocks, it's just to kind of get a general sense of the water feature that is going to be going in there. So this will give lots of the nice water feature, plus over here a huge amount of space for plants. So that's really good. Still working on where I kind of want the driftwood. I'm kind of liking this idea right here, going over the waterfall, sort of off center, but still working on what I think I'm gonna do. So that is about it. Okay, so for this video, I actually turned my phone on the side so we can see everything. So this is still like day 4 or 5. One exciting thing is I got my new light. So the lights up here, it's gonna get really bright. It's all LED, and really pretty nice light. I got it from Amazon. So I just looked for like an aquarium lighting. Right now everything looks really funny because it's flipped over on its back. So right now this is the background. Now I'm going to be redoing this background, but I'm going to be using this foam because it already has some great structure to it. So it's nice and easy. So I've got everything sort of pinned and propped and weighted down, as I have just siliconed the background on, and I have just siliconed the egg crate on. Now on top of the egg crate, and it's all kind of mushed up here because of the way it's silicone, but once you get, sorry, this is pardon me, gardening or landscaping fabric, and once I get this laid down and pulled up properly, it will smooth out. You can kind of see that there. So this is going to hold the substrate in from going in to the water. And then on the front of these, I just put like a window screen, but it has to be like a fiberglass. It can't be metal, so it has to be something like in the plastic kind of area. Now, don't worry about these gaps because all of this is going to be secured with expanding foam. There's going to be a ton of expanding foam, and I ran out of windscreen, but that's okay. So on this, I'm just going to put entire expanding foam, and the same on here because I'm going to put like a rock feature in here. So that's what's going on. So I have just everything sort of sitting, and when I get it all dried, give it a good 24 hours to cure, and then I can start the next step, which is the expanding foam piece, which for me is the most fun. Hello and welcome to day 6. I say day 6, I'm sure there's a missing day in there somewhere, but I just wanted to let you know where we're at. So this morning when I woke up, this was with the last video, this was the foam under here where I had siliconed it down and it was really good. And I had siliconed the false bottom down. Now again, this is on its back, so that's why it kind of looks all kind of wonky. So I decided that this piece of driftwood's going here. And then I put, it's hard to see, these two pieces here. Now what I did is I kind of placed everything where I wanted to do, and I got my Great Stuff expanding foam, and again I prefer the black, and I went in and just spray foamed everything. So the water feature pump is coming in here. So inside the egg crate I just shoved some plastic, so this is like a garbage bag, just shove some, any kind of plastic bags are fine, that if you put them in here, so as you're putting the expanding foam on here, it doesn't drip through. So this allows access for the pump to go right into the bottom. So I've completely sealed this off. Now I just sprayed this about, I'm gonna say 20-30 minutes ago. So it is still curing, even though the top still is drying. So I went through and I did that, and I expanded the foam with the driftwood here. Now kind of what I'm going for, and it's gonna look so much better once we have it the right side up, is I'm gonna be carving this out afterwards to make sort of like a cave structure. So that's what we're going for there. And then just carve this piece, and then in my previous videos, as I was telling you, I put these cups in here, and so then I can actually put plants in here. So I put a couple little ones in here. See, this foam is still, it's curing, and I just started there. So my next step after this is, after this is all cured and set, I'm gonna write it and put it up the right way, and then work on carving and working on the water feature. And then I still have to do a bunch more expanding foam on here, which I have another can, and I have a feeling I might need one more, because yeah. So yeah, so that's the expanding foam right there. So that's where we are at. It doesn't look like much now, but once we get it all flipped around, it's gonna be pretty cool. All right, I think we're on day 7 of the Paludarium build. So with the last one I showed you, I did all the expanding foam on the back, and then I flipped it right side up and did the top. So I'll give you a little tour of what we got going on here. So on the back piece here, we've got an area for plants, another area for plants. I've got these 2 pieces of driftwood. This one is sort of snuck, buried back here, but this is all this foam you can carve out. And I've made a cave area for the frogs because they like to hide. And then up where the water feature is, I put another area to put plants. So down in here is where I can take this out. Plastic. And I put another piece of plastic in there. Some of it's still a little wet on the one side. But as you can see, hello and welcome to day 8. I think we're sitting at. So last night what I did was I went and because I had placed all these rocks in the waterfall feature to make sure that they ran properly, and they did. So what I did was I took them all out. I kept them in the order of kind of what I wanted, and I put in this black plastic. It's like a thick tarp type plastic. Inside, I siliconed that all down, and then I siliconed the rocks down, and I'm using black 100% silicone, so it's safe for any animals that I'm going to be putting in there. So I've just been kind of fiddling with that. So just showing you that the waterfall feature comes down. And I did kind of notice as I was carving that if I put this rock in here, it kind of trickles down. So I thought this would be a really neat place to grow some nice mosses. And then it comes in and around the back and then under this log, and then it flows out. So the plan for today is I'm now gonna turn that off. I need to drain this tank now that I know the water feature is functioning, that there's no leaks, that everything is going really, really well. Drain it all out, and I need to finish carving. So the whole thing with the carving, and I've already done quite a bit of it, is that with the expanding foam, the stuff that hasn't been carved, and I can show you up here the difference. Right here, it's kind of shiny. Silicone won't stick to that. So when I'm going to be putting the cocoa fiber and the orchid bark on it, I have to carve all that out, put the silicone for all that to stick. So all that has to be carved off in order for it to stick properly. Now, some people don't, they just leave it, and that's absolutely fine, but that's kind of what I want to do. And I've had a couple questions about the filter, so I will show you. So this top piece in this corner, this is where the filter is. So there's like the egg crate kind of box that's housing the filter here. So this is not going to be permanent. So this is how I'll be able to access it. Is I've taken this piece of stone here and I can take it off. Now the cord's running back here, and some people will put like tubing and stuff to hide the cord, but I didn't do that because I'll probably put a plant or some moss or something back in there. And this piece comes right off, and it'll all be secure so that the frogs can't get down in there. And right here you can see the tube that runs from the pump, and I don't know if you guys can see that, but the pump is way down there. So that's where the pump is, and I am going to put some, you don't have to because this is going to be an ecosystem itself, but I am going to just put some filter media, some charcoal and stuff like that, because I do plan to have fish. And in the water feature, some white cloud minnows, and the frogs do secrete a toxin, so it's important to just keep it really nice and filtered. And I'm just going to bring you over here onto the side so you can kind of see better of how this is created. So this is the piece of big foam. Do you have to put this? No, but then I didn't have to use as much expanding foam, so when this foam came with it, silicone the foam here. Here's your expanding foam. Here's the egg crate liner that's there. And then you can kind of see through the bubbles. This space here is your false bottom. And there is the little tiny pump that's sitting back there pumping the water, and nothing will be able to get in here because it's all sealed off with mesh netting. And yeah, so that is the false bottom, and then I can actually see what's going on in there. You can see there. So yeah, that is the plan for today. Okay, so I've pretty much done all the carving and all the scraping and all that kind of stuff. I feel like I'm ready for the next step. If you want to know what I use to carve, I literally use just the utility blades, and I've probably gone through like 8 of them, and when they start to get dull, just get a brand new one. And my fingers, which have taken a beating. So if you are wondering how to carve it, you basically just take your blade, and it's a slow and tedious process, but you just kind of carve out the pieces like that, and then remove that leftover. So it usually ends up being a big mess. You can see down here I haven't carved this out, but this is going to be covered in substrate, so I'm not overly concerned about that. Again, this is going to be covered in substrate. I could dig in a bit deeper here, and on like the tougher spots I just went in, I just went in with my nails and like this. And I had like you can use like really any tool that you want. I don't want to take too much of this off because it's not that thick. So that's what I do there. So just going around, and you're basically taking off all the shiny bits, like I said before, so that when you put on the silicone, it has something to adhere to. Yeah, so that's pretty much what I've got going on there. So now that that is all done, and I did the bottom, so this has some structure. It's hard to see because of the water there, but you can kind of see different areas because the frogs will like to lay out. They like to sit in the water with something propping them up. And yeah, so now I just need to drain the water, dry everything out, and on to the next step. In this area, you can see where I've stacked insulation board on top of each other to create the waterfall cascade down. I sprayed expanding foam around it and lined it with a thick piece of tarp-like plastic to keep this area away from the substrate so it doesn't flow into there. Here you can see that the water feature is now being tested out with some slate rock that I've stacked up, and after it was all stacked up, I then siliconed it on, and it was functioning well. Here you see me applying black 100% silicone before applying the cocoa fiber, sphagnum moss, and orchid bark to the back. However, this stuff didn't work very well, and I had to redo it with clear 100% silicone. The application process is the same. Put it on really thick. I tried it with a brush, but my hand worked better. Okay, so here we are. I've literally just siliconed everything, hoping I got all the good parts. So it's kind of sticky, icky, ooey, gross. And now to add all the decorations. So I hope I have enough silicone. If not, if there's spots, we'll just touch them up. No big deal. So let's get started on that. Here you see me adding sphagnum moss, cocoa fiber, and orchid bark to this area, and it's really important that you really push it in. Honestly, I didn't put enough silicone on the first go about, so I had to redo it. Hindsight 2020, but you really need to push it in and let it sit overnight. Okay, so I had a little setback because the black silicone that I used didn't stick worth crap. So I used my clear 100% silicone. So I had to clean all of this out, take out all of this, clean it out, brush it off, reapply silicone, and reapply the substrate on the wall, which again is sphagnum moss, which I can never say properly, orchid bark, and cocoa fiber. So you can see that I have quite a bit of the moss in these areas. And what the sphagnum moss will actually do is, as it holds water, it'll increase your humidity levels in your terrarium, paludarium, vivarium, whatever you're making, as will the cocoa bark. But this is stuck on really, really nice. So now next step is to clean it all out again, vacuum it all out, and then I have to go in and clean this water feature. I probably should have covered it up with something. Well, it's gonna be a job. So I'm gonna do that. Then I'm gonna run the water, make sure that's all clear. And I think I might actually, in here, is glue some more rocks so it looks a bit more natural coming off, but I'm not sure yet. I haven't decided. Anyways, that's where I'm at. This is one of my favorite things to do, which is to actually start putting some plants in. I've got a substrate mixture that I actually use from Serpent Design, so you can head over to his channel and he'll tell you what he puts in his, and that's what I have done here. So I just started adding the plants and moving them around and trying to figure out the best spots for everything to be. Here's a little preview of the terrestrial area all planted. I did end up moving some plants around, which is just fine. A lot of people will say, oh, I can't do that, or how do you be so creative? And honestly, it's just from watching other people and how they do it. Huge shout out to Serpent Design, because I think I've watched his videos over and over and over again, especially his Bellied Toad Paludarium build. I probably watched 15 to 20 times just to see how he did everything. So it's just a learning curve, and it's just trial and error, really. All right, so I'm on the final bit of planting. Right now I'm planting the aquatic area. It's a bit murky because I've just put some substrate in there, but I did switch a couple things around a bit. I didn't like the original plant that was here, so I put one of these in. I have no idea what it is. And so some of them took a pretty good beating, but they're settling in nice. And then I found some rock or cap moss, so put that in there. And then just some other Java moss and other mosses there. Kind of moved this plant over a bit so this kind of hidey hole for the frogs is a bit more visible. Changed that plant up over there and moved a couple of things. So as of late, I have just been letting it run and getting the plants acclimated to everything. So right now I've got sand on the bottom. I just like the look of it. And then I put Seachem Fluorite Black in there for the planted areas. And then I have a ton of plants in these bags that I'm just going to go through, and I'm going to be planting them. Well, here is the final product of my Paludarium build for my Bellied Toads. I've got 4 babes in a smaller Paludarium right now. So I just put the aquatic plants in yesterday. Some of them are a bit too long, so I might actually take them out and put in like an Anubis or something a little bit smaller. But yeah, so got some really carpeting plants, added the rock down into the water line, some fluvial some sand. There's leaf litter in there, and then this is the top portion up here. So with the stream, and I've got Java moss and other mosses that will come and grow in, and then the water actually trickles down in through here, so all these plants will actually act like filtration. I think the froggies will like it. And they've got a nice little cubbyhole home back in the corner here. And in behind these plants here, there's nice little spots for them to hang out too.